Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I just did a video on how to make $1 million and breaking it down to show you that it's not as hard as you might think and there's multiple ways to get there. And so I hope that video was helpful for you. Feel free to check it out. But in today's video, I want to talk about how to become a definite millionaire, but a multi-millionaire. And so to start thinking about, instead of just, I want $1 million, how do we make $10 million? How do we make $50 million, $100 million in your lifetime? And so I'm going to share some tips that I researched and I learned, and I hope they're helpful with you. Let's do it. So most people who achieve great things, big athletes, people who are really rich and successful or wealthy, or they have good relationships, it doesn't happen by accident. You have to be super intentional, and you have to have certain habits and character traits to get you there. And so we're going to talk about why self-made millionaires and multimillionaires are different. And there's things that you can learn. It all comes down to skills, mindsets, and habits. And so you do have to create your own luck. There is something to that. It doesn't just happen, but you can create your own luck. And a lot of successful, rich, and wealthy people talk about that. We could talk more about that if you're interested. It's about putting yourself in the right situations to get lucky. But at the end of the day, you have to do certain habits. You have to have certain mindsets. And so let's learn them so that we can all be millionaires, multimillionaires, and achieve financial success. So the first habit is that they're frugal. They don't spend above their means. They're very mindful and careful. And there was a study done with over 600 participants, and it showed that they're very mindful of their spending and they never spend above their means. And so this means, say you're approved for a $500,000 house. You don't go get a $500,000 or a $600,000 house. You might get a $400,000 one or a $300,000 one, right? You're always trying to live below your means and be smart with your money. It's not about being cheap. It's about being smart. Number two, you want to keep your housing costs low. And so this goes along with not spending above your means, but also be careful about the big three: your transportation, the food, and your house. And so a lot of people, have you heard of the term being house poor? They spend most of their money on their house. And so if you are able to spend below that, you're going to have more money to do more things, right? To take care of yourself, to put in investments or assets, etc. And so it was shown that the latest study, there was $850,000 was spent, 3.4 times the current income of millionaires. And their original purchase price was $465,000. And so millionaires typically, that's a pretty decent amount of house and a pretty good amount. But it's not like they're spending millions or $2 million or $900,000 on a house. Number three, they save a lot of what they make. And so this is fascinating. And so we talked about this. If you make $250,000, do not spend $250,000. You want to make sure that you live below your means. And so typically people have a high savings rate if you are a millionaire or a multimillionaire. It's not just about the income, right? Some people just think, oh, they have a really high income and that's why they have a lot of money or they have a lot of things. But typically it can be, right? We can only save so much. And I'm a huge advocate for not just like scrimping and saving, for seeing how can I earn more? How can I get more money? And so this is very important, but typically they have a very high savings rate. So say you make $250,000, they're going to save half of that, or at least 15, 25, 30%. Typically, if you want to become a millionaire faster or have more money and have a lot more time and freedom, you're going to have a pretty high savings rate or a pretty big gap between how much you make and how much you spend. Number four, this one is interesting and maybe some financial experts are going to gasp, but they don't necessarily have a budget. And so this can be a really helpful tool when you're first starting out, and it could be something that helps you throughout the entirety of your life. But for a lot of people, if they make enough money and then they actually have the habits of not spending a lot and they're very mindful and they kind of have a self-awareness of what they do spend and they're living so below their means that they don't have to be super exact and like $50 here and $100 here. They just have a general knowing. And so this can be helpful. Honestly, budgets can give you so much freedom and power, and it really is a helpful tool. But when you do get really comfortable and when you do have enough money, you don't have to be as strict in particular, but you can. Number five, they take on a side hustle. And so for some people, it helps just really investing in the one thing that you're doing. If you're an entrepreneur, just invest in that. If you have a really good opportunity with your job and you have a high income skill and you can make good money and get promoted and whatever, and you like it, then go for that. But a lot of people that are wealthy develop side hustles. Maybe it's a project where they could have another source of income and that could help and feed it. It could be a passion project, something that they enjoy, or that side hustle could eventually become their full-time thing. And so it's really important to take advantage of your time and skills and try to make more money, especially when you're younger. If you can find ways to make more money that feel aligned with you, the better off you'll be. Number 6, they typically invest in real estate. And so this can be with their primary home. This can be as an actual investment. But typically the pros of having real estate is positive cash flow, appreciation in terms of housing values, leverage, and tax advantages. And so there definitely can be pros and cons to renting versus buying. And we want to have a nation of owners. Conscientious talks about this with owning businesses and things of that nature. But you can run your own calculation. Would you like a video on that, like renting versus buying and figuring out what's right for you, especially during this economic time and where housing prices are super, super high, at least compared to how they were a few years ago? Let me know in the comments below if you want that. But typically they invest in real estate, and it's a great asset class for some people. Some people really understand it. And so if you do, go for it. Number 7, they invest in low-cost index funds. And so this is such a life changer because I was always a saver. I've told you guys this, but I didn't invest my money. And I did hear about investing. And yes, I did invest in like the 401ks at work, but I didn't do it on my own. And because it was scary to me, I didn't understand it. I was not educated on it, and I honestly didn't take the time to learn about it, right? And so you don't have to pick individual stocks. Most people and wealthy people, they champion, even Warren Buffett says, for most people, getting low-cost index funds is important, and it will be a great wealth building tool for you. And so these are ETFs. A lot of times I use Vanguard. A lot of people do use Vanguard. You could also use Fidelity, Charles Schwab, but do the research for yourself, but invest. This is one of my favorite ways to eventually to know that I am going to be making more money over time. And it is a way that we're going to be multimillionaires. Number 7, they spend time planning for investments and planning for their financial future. And so you actually spend time learning and getting educated on what's going to be a good decision for yourself and for your family. And so many wealthy people and millionaires, they read, they learn, and they study. And so this is something that could help you adopt that habit into your life. Don't just read random things or books that aren't necessarily helpful, like maybe like fiction or something, unless that's just something you want to do for pleasure. But you really want to actually go educate yourself. And then in turn, you could take action on some of those things you learned, which will help propel you forward. Number 8, millionaires put more energy into personal growth activities. And so have you heard of personal development? It's one of my favorite things. I loved coming across the space. I felt like it really went in alignment with who I am and what I just did. I'm like, oh, there's a whole group of people all working on this. This is awesome. And there's so much good information out there. But millionaires, they typically spend around 5.5 hours a week for pleasure and nearly 6 hours a week exercising, while the average American spends 2 hours and 2.5 hours on those activities. And so you see that gap, right? In life and in success, like Kobe Bryant, he practiced the basics, the fundamentals, but he practiced more than other people, right? And so you have to figure out, how can you expand the gap between other people, right? What are you willing to do that other people aren't? And it's not necessarily competition, but you just have to do more. That's typically what it is, or even just do it at all, right? You have to exercise. You have to spend time learning and reading and getting informed, or spending time on your side hustle. If you spend more time on these things, then you're more likely to be successful and get what you want. Number 9, they use their time wisely. And so typically, if you are working on a side hustle, if you have something going on, they typically will work either a long stretch in the evening, or a lot of people wake up early and they will wake up 3 hours before their workday and they'll get stuff done. And the whole point is, right, if you want to do something else, if you have a different direction for your life, if you have other things besides just your main job, you need to spend time doing that. You need to wake up early or stay up later to get that exercise in, to work on that side hustle project, to organize your life. Whatever you need to do, you need to give yourself more time. We all have 24 hours in a day. The most successful people and the least successful people, the most happy people and the least happy people. So you need to give yourself that time and create that time and use it. Number 10, self-made millionaires and multimillionaires, they typically think more. And so this is so interesting that they tend to think in isolation, and they tend to at least think for 15 minutes a day, but typically more. And so they're always thinking and reflecting and saying, Can I be exercising more? Can I be doing this more? What can I learn about, right? And so if you're actually being intentional with your life and you're taking the time to think and reflect and to grow, then you're going to be able to plant more seeds and be more successful. Number 11, they don't follow the crowd. And this is so funny. My husband tells me sometimes, he's like, you just want to do this because other people don't want to do it, or other people do the opposite, right? And I'm like, no, that's not true. I'm not trying to necessarily do the opposite. That's one reason I really resonate with Cody Sanchez. She has contrarian thinking. You just think differently, right? And so I'm just more like critically think about stuff, right? And then I'm like, if that doesn't make sense to me, then I'm going to do something else. Or I question, why do we do what we do? And sometimes I'm like, I love that. That makes so much sense. And other times I'm like, I don't know. I think there's a better way, at least for me, right? Everybody is going to be different. But what you really want to do is not follow the crowd, right? Like, the average American is overweight. The average American is depressed. The average American is in a ton of debt, right? And so do you want to be like the crowd? Do you want to be average? And so I want to help the average. Like, I want to be like, I see people suffering and can't afford their bills and are sad or depressed, or they're unhealthy and unhappy. And I want to help that. And I don't want to be that, right? And so if you don't want to do that, you have to take different actions, right? Like we said earlier, if people aren't typically exercising, then you got to be the one to exercise. That's why I've started exercising. I feel so much better. Have a long way to go, but I'm building myself back up. And I'm doing the actions anyways, because that's going to help me. And so see what you actually want, and then you have to figure out the path to get there. And it might not be what everybody else does. Number 12, they ask for feedback, right? And so you can take the time to learn for yourself. You can take the time to think and reflect. But at the end of the day, you got to see what other people think. You have to find coaches, mentors, people that can support you, or just generally ask people that you trust to be like, hey, can I have some feedback here? Or what do you think of this thing I'm working on? Or ask your spouse, like, how have I been showing up lately? Is there anything I could do to help you better? Is there anything that I can improve on, right? You always want to be asking that question instead of just going through and assuming you're perfect or never trying to improve, right? You are good enough as you are, but we do have room for improvement always. Going along with this, successful people, especially people who have businesses or things of that nature, or if you have a product, you're going to ask, what does the customer like? What do they not like, right? You want to figure out, you can't please everybody. That is one thing. Like, I would love to please everybody, but you can listen to what are the general feedbacks. Maybe someone, like with Sarah and Spanx, maybe one of her lines, and people are like, it just felt a little tight and it didn't feel as comfortable. And that comment happened multiple times, hundreds of times, then they're going to probably do something about it, right? And so it's really important to listen to feedback because it can help you to become better or to make your product better. Speaking of feedback, if you have any tips or ideas for how to make this channel better, or information that you'd rather hear from me or that you like hearing from me, or tips on how to make the videos fancier or more enjoyable, let me know in the comments. Number 13, they are resilient and they persevere. And so I found this quote, I really liked it. It says, to build wealth and to build one's own business, to ignore critics and media and neighbors, you must have the resolve to keep pursuing your goals past rejection and pain. And so this is so true. And I talk about some of this on my channel and some of the feelings and emotions and thoughts and mindsets that come up and how I'm trying to tackle them, right? And it's really important to keep going, to be resilient. We are so resilient as human beings. We have that potential. You'll see with kids, they are so resilient. If they fall down, they can pick themselves back up and keep moving forward, right? And so you have to keep persisting and growing and going through the motions and going through the process to get where you want to be. Number 14, they prioritize 4 main relationships. So the author Chris Hogan, who is the author of Everyday Millionaires, How Ordinary People Built Extraordinary Wealth and How You Can Too, he studied 10,000 American millionaires, and he found that they all had 4 key relationships. One was a coach, one was a mentor, one was a cheerleader, and one was a friend. And so do you have those people in your life? Do you have a cheerleader? Do you have a friend? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a coach? If you have those 4, then you're more likely to be successful and more likely to achieve wealth in your dreams. Number 15, they practice consistency and personal responsibility. And so if you're trying to lose weight, I talk about this because I think it's a relatable one, or one we can all understand, then you need to be consistent, right? You need to eat the healthy meals daily. At each meal, you have to follow the plan. You have to be consistent, right? Or if you're trying to exercise, lose weight, or get stronger, you have to hit the gym every single day that you had planned to, and for weeks after weeks after weeks after weeks, right? You're going to start feeling the progress, but in order to see real change and in order to make it a strong habit and to be that type of person, you have to keep doing the thing for a long period of time. Number 16, they're more conscientious. And so this is part of the Big Five. I really, really love the Big Five. If you want to check it out, feel free to. It talks about conscientiousness. If you are more extroverted or introverted, it talks about agreeable or disagreeable, all open or not open. It's 5 main traits and where you are on the spectrum. But conscientiousness, if you're high in conscientiousness, this is actually a really, really great trait to have. It's going to make you more aware. You're more conscientious of your actions, of the things around you, of your financial habits, of your goals, of anything. And you're going to be more likely to stick with what you want to and achieve what you want. So conscientiousness, this is an innate trait, but you can also work on it. It's super, super important to be wealthy and to achieve any goal that you have. All right, so that wraps it up. Those were some tips on how to become a multimillionaire. Remember to expand your thinking into, if you want to be a millionaire, that's great, but you could be a multimillionaire. You could have $100 million, right? And so let's think bigger and let's have a mission and a desire to not just have the wealth for ourselves, but what good can we do in the world? And so let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you like this video? Do you have any questions? Do you have any habits that you do or that you would add to this list? Definitely let me know. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, share with a friend, subscribe for more, hit the notification bell, and feel free to watch the next video if you want more tips on improving yourself and your life. Thanks so much for being here. You've got this, and I will see you in the next video. I can't wait to see what you do with your life. Bye, guys.